Hi, I'm Kieran Taylor, Senior Director of Product Marketing for Agile Operations at CA Technologies. We're streaming live from CA World 2017 here in Las Vegas. Very lucky to be joined with our Vice President of DevOps Strategy, Chris Kline. And we wanted to talk to Chris a little bit about what he's learned today at CA World 2017. Chris oversees our DevOps strategy, so we're going to get into a little detail of how CA is making a difference both for dev and the ops teams. Hi Chris, how are you doing?
I'm great. The buzz here is just fantastic. It's been fun to be here today.
That's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about what's new. What are you seeing on the show floor that's new that would impact, as I said, either the dev side or the ops side or both? Have you seen any new solutions or?
So CA's recently launched a solution called Digital Experience Monitoring, Digital Experience Insights, we call it DXI sometimes for short. And it's really focused on bringing together different silos of monitoring that have been out there for many, many years. As we move to DevOps and as we start to break down silos and barriers that have been around for many years, it's really important that we get beyond just the guy that does app monitoring, just the guy that does infra monitoring or network, and we start to just look at the holistic view of what needs to be monitored, what is the user experience, and when it's not good, whose fault is it, in effect. And so CA's launched this just recently, we're getting some great feedback on it, breaking those silos down, getting beyond APM and infrastructure to really focus on the underlying root causes and the analytics that brings that all together.
So if those, tools, those monitoring tools were kind of highly specialized and you probably had, specialists within the IT organization that
Sure.
would So does that in effect create a use case for a new persona? Is there a new,
I think it does. Frankly, it's still fairly nascent. It depends on who and where you are, what kind of organization you're in. Some talk about bimodal organizations and so on. So you're going to have some folks who are still going to be the app expert, the network expert. That's not necessarily going away. You want those experts on speed dial. What we're really looking to do is expand that circle of influence beyond the core group of experts who have been the go-to people for such a long time. The tooling that we offer and that has been available in this industry for a long time is powerful, but has often required the right expert set of hands. And in most shops, there's only a few hands available, and the need far eclipses the capability of availability, I should say. And so what we're looking to do is expand that influence to those who might not be such an expert. And so we've added, for example, analytics tools that help us find root cause analysis moving from application all the way to infrastructure. One of the things in the past that I think has driven our customers kind of crazy over time is that we would declare root causes within the domains of specific products. And so if I was an APM person, I would say the root cause of a problem is the database. That's great, until you ask why it was the database. And then you go to the infrastructure guy and say, well, what happened to the database? And he'd say, well, it's because the CPU was really high on this thing. And that's great. Why was the CPU high? Well, because the network was having problems. And so then you go to your network guy and ask the same question again, and it starts to become this really lengthy and frankly expensive problem to solve because you're bringing so many experts to bear. What we're doing now is going from app to infrastructure with automated analysis that says, this user experience was poor, because of the database, because of a problem in a Docker system, for example, or because the CPU was high on the underlying server. Really breaking those silos apart.
So when you see these problems, is Digital Experience Insights maybe learning as it goes? Is it able to offer any, recommendations on, hey, I saw this and here's a possible fix for the issue you're experiencing?
The analytics engine underneath does learn. It's also rooted in patterns that we know about. Machine learning is really important. I'll come back to that in just a second. But something I think gets overlooked a lot when we start talking about AI and ML, because they're the buzzwords of the month, it seems right now, is that
AI and ML.
I'm sorry, artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so analytics is the umbrella.
Yeah.
Those things are they're really popular right now, and they are steering the direction of the market, absolutely. But what we sometimes forget is that underneath all of the magic learning algorithms, we've still got experts who have known patterns that are indisputable. And these patterns are, let's get some examples.
Yeah.
So an example might be in the application space, a death by 1,000 paper cuts. That is an app that makes a call to a database or a back-end resource too many times and kind of suffocates the application as a result of that.
Yeah.
That is one of perhaps, certainly no more than 10, maybe 6 or 8 known patterns that would comprise the lion's share, maybe 80% of the problems that happen in applications. Well, the same could be said for infrastructure, for network kinds of problems. And so as we get to machine learning, we get to artificial intelligence and learning from past behavior, that is really important. But let's not forget that underneath all of that, we have known patterns that you need long industry experience to be able to recognize and embrace those patterns, and certainly that's what CA brings to bear. When you tie that together with the artificial intelligence, the machine learning of big data engines, we start to feed in data from a variety of different sources. Then the solution becomes far more interesting because you're putting together experience with automation.
Right. One of the things I heard this morning from Ali Siddiqui's keynote, and he talked about digital experience insights and the importance of monitoring that end user experience, and so we kind of are hearing that these insights are important inside the modern software factory. Help me connect that to DevOps. I mean, does a solution like Digital Experience Insights provide value in a DevOps situation? Would you see developers ever accessing that?
Many times a developer doesn't have visibility beyond the local ecosystem. And what I mean is a developer doesn't actually know, how are the features that I'm building being used in the real world? Are they being used the way that I thought they would be? Is the performance how it should be? And can I get closed loop feedback on that to make better decisions and to come at it more than one time? Closed loop being really a key feature here. There's a term we sometimes use in our business called the V1 syndrome. And what we mean is you go out, you build a feature, you check the box because it was something that was on the list of things to be done, and once that box has been checked, you never really come back to it to make sure you did it right. Those who are so good in this industry, they're really skilled at getting past the V1 syndrome, and they sculpt and they build the feature set until it's perfection. And you know the brands and the products that are so good at that.
Yeah.
Well, building an automation pipeline that lets us close that loop so that we can all be that way is where DevOps comes together with experience. So let's take the idea of a developer, for example. If the developer understood where the users were touching on the system, if the developer could see when there was a crash on a mobile app, for example, and could see what the user was doing prior to that crash, or where 75% of the users are going down this path in an application as opposed to that path, that can help the developer, or certainly the Scrum Master, and getting into the leaders of the team, help them figure out where should I put scarce resources to make this app even better, building a 5-star experience. Then you take that same data and you feed it into the automation. So that instead of just having it be ops does ops things and dev does dev things, a lot of times in DevOps, the focus is not really on the integration points between the two. We will use that information to inject and strengthen the pipeline so that the CI tooling makes better decisions based upon what it sees in performance. Imagine, so we talked about production, let's back up and shift left a little bit. In a pre-production world, maybe I want to use my performance data from APM and use that to determine whether or not build over build my app is getting better or worse, so the developer can be nudged to make corrections to it long before that app ever gets to production. These are things that folks haven't necessarily focused on in the past because monitoring was a production domain skill set.
Sure.
Now it's moving into the realm of the developer. But we have to present it to those developers in terminology and in a fashion that is easily adoptable. Instead of saying, hey, come use this new tool, let's bring it to them in the things they're doing already.
Cool. As I roam the show floor here and I go to the continuous delivery content area, the word that comes up quite frequently is automation. Automated testing, whether it's continuous integration, continuous testing. Seems like that's a big part of the DevOps mantra, if you will. Do you see automation coming into the ops side? Does it have a role in monitoring?
I've grown up in the space of monitoring for many years now, and for a long time I felt like monitoring was cool because I said it was cool, and I've been trying to teach people that it's cool. And the truth is that maybe it's not so much. To answer your question, the power of automation is in using monitoring beyond its original intent. the power of automation is not just in automating things for the sake of automating them. That's been around for decades now. If you put those together, it's almost a peanut butter and chocolate kind of analogy, better together.
I love Reese's Cups, by the way.
This is the time of year for that.
Yeah.
So if you think about how you would take monitoring and automation and put them together, you can create self-healing. You create automatic remediation. You create elastic scaling. This is not science fiction of the future. It's not systems that don't exist today or waiting for some new product to come on the market. It's using technologies and capabilities that exist today. You think of them as Lego blocks. We're going to reassemble those Lego blocks in a new and interesting way beyond what many folks have thought about before. Maybe let's take an example. Let's look at using, let's use an advanced one that might be interesting. So there's a concept of something called a canary deployment. Not everybody's familiar with it. It means that when you push new code to production, you don't put it to all of your servers, you put it to some of them, some small number. Let's say you have 10 servers and you put it to 2 of them. And then you open up the users to it and you see how it works. And if it works great, you open it to everybody and push it to the rest of the servers. If it doesn't work great, you only had a small number of people that were affected by it and you pull it back very quickly. Well, how do you know if it's working great or not working great? That's where APM comes in. That's where AXA comes in. It's where digital experience comes in. Well, how do you figure out to push it forward or pull it back? That's the automation part of it. So it's the peanut butter and chocolate that would automate things that otherwise would be done by hand, but it's doing it based on closed loop feedback. That's what automation hasn't had before. It's been a static set of steps, and now we're going to inform those steps based upon what we see in real world behavior.
Cool. Hey, Chris, I really appreciate you taking time.
It's great to be here.
Yeah. No, it's been a great show, and we still have one more day left.
Thanks.
So
excited for it.
Drink a lot of water.
Thanks, Kieran.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll have another live session tomorrow. And the Digital Experience Insights solution that Chris and I have been talking about is actually available for a free trial. Just go to ca.com/trydxi. That's TRYDXI. Thanks very much for joining us, and have a great day.
Later, Facebook.